Welcome back. In our previous tutorial, we used Google Apps Script to find and hide rows in a large data set here and made our function much more efficient by batching up values together. So what do I mean by this? Very quickly, we'll hit Control F and type in koala as a search range. And with our version 2 script here, we're now batching together entire ranges, and then we're requesting those ranges be hidden instead of hiding every single row and making calls to the spreadsheet each time a row contains a koala. In this tutorial, we are going to use the Google Sheets Advanced service to do the same thing and use a batch upload to make a single request to hide all the rows in the sheet. To play along, you can grab a copy of the starter sheet from the link in the description below. So once you have your starter sheet, open it up and go into the Google Apps Script IDE. You should see two functions in IDE that look like this. Now I've used a sneaky hack to hide the files menu, but I need to bring that back to show you how to get to the Sheets Advanced service. So let's just go ahead and do that first. I'll just refresh. Okay, so to get the Google Sheets Advanced service, let's just click on this plus button here and we'll scroll down until we can find Google Sheets. Click on that and click on Add. And Sheets is there. And you can see our identifier here is Sheets. Now I'm just going to hide this files column here just so you can see the code a bit better now. Cool. All right, so let's dive into some Google Sheets Advanced API action. The Google Sheets Advanced Service batch update takes a request and the sheet ID. First thing we want to do is still make things efficient for the process and just batch these ranges where koala exists together like we did in the previous tutorial. Unlike in the previous tutorial, however, we need a start index and then we need an end index. We don't need the length or how many items are going to be in the range. So we'll make a few modifications to this function. So first thing we need to do is we need to build our request. So let's just go into this row 15 here of our code and we're going to say build requests for batch update, and we'll say let requests, and that's going to be equal to an array of requests. And we might as well set up our batch request as well, just so you know how it all works. And we'll say sheets, and that's the advanced function, and we're going to call the spreadsheet, and from that we want the batch update. And inside the batch update, our first argument is going to be the resource, and that's going to be an object of requests, and those requests are going to be equal to requests. And then we also need the ID of the sheet that we want to apply this request to. So we'll say SSID here. Awesome. Okay, so we've got SSID, so we need to grab that spreadsheet ID as well. And what we're going to do is we'll say const, and we'll say SSID, and that's going to be equal to ss.getID. So we've got our spreadsheet here, and we can actually ask for the ID from the spreadsheet, from the active spreadsheet. Cool. So every time we find a range now, we need to put that in a request, and the requests take a certain format. So what we're going to do is create a function, and let's just comment that function first, and we'll say appends each request to the requests array, and that's this one on line 17 here. And it's going to take one parameter, and that'll be equal to an object. Cool. And that'll be called set range. And that inside that set range will have a start row and also have an end row. Sweet. Okay, let's build this function now. So we'll say function, and we'll call this append requests. And here we'll say set range as our argument. And inside this, we need to set up our request object. So requests here, we'll say requests dot push, and inside this push into this request array, we need to add in a object. And that's not an object, that's an object. And the first one we need is update dimension properties. And that's going to be equal to an object. So whenever you're working with different ranges in here, they're going to be called dimension properties. And the first thing dimension property updater requires us to do is add in a range. So we'll say range here, and that's going to be equal to an object of itself. And inside that object, it needs a sheet ID. And that can't be the sheet name. It actually has to be the ID. So for this function up here, if you look up the top and see if we can move across to the right, you'll see a GID here, and that's going to be the ID. So how do we grab that and put that in here? Let's go back up to the top of our main variables for this function, and we'll say sheet ID. And that is going to be sheet.get sheet ID, and that will return this 1037 up here. Cool, and then now we can reference the sheet ID down here. Okay, so once we have the sheet ID, we need to grab some more stuff here. We need to explain what the dimension is. Is it columns or rows? So dimension, and that's going to be equal to rows as a string. Next, we need a start index. And that start index, we're going to use this set range up here. And it will be the first object, so it'll be the start row of it, and that'll be -1 because we'll keep everything in this order, this numerical order here, and then we'll move it back to programming numbering where it starts from 0, just for the user's convenience. And then we want an end index, and that's going to be equal to set range dot end row. Nice. Okay, so after we've identified the range, now we need to add in the properties. And these properties take another object, and this property is going to contain fields, and the field is hidden by user. Nice. That wraps up that push here. I think we've got our closures right. That's closing in on that. Yep. Properties is good. This one's the range one. Yeah, don't feel we made a mistake here. We're pretty good. So that's the function append requests. Okay, so just like in the previous tutorial, we need a placeholder called row range. And that's going to be equal to an object, and that object is going to contain a start row, and it'll be set to null first, and an end row, and that'll also be set to null. And now we finally need to iterate through all of our occurrences up here. So all occurrences for each, and we'll put a function in here. First we want to say the cell will be our cell identifier for each iterator, and then we also want to include the index IDX. Here we'll create an arrow function and give it a bit of space, and then the first variable again will be const row equal to cell.get get row. There we go. And then on our first occurrence, or our first iteration of all occurrences, we just need our if statement here. So if the index is equal to 0, so it's the first time we iterate through, all we're going to do is update the row range. So row range dot range dot start row equals the row number, and then row range dot end row equals the row number again. Now keep in mind, as we go up here, you can see the set start row. I've subtracted 1 from the start row here. Everything starts from 0 here. So row 1 is actually 0 in the advanced sheet service. Okay, so now we say else if, and on this condition we want to say if there is another value that's on the same row, just ignore it. Let's move on to the next iteration of this for each loop. So how can we say that? So we will say else if row range dot and row matches or equals to the row. So like for example here in this row 22, so if the previous iteration, which would have been B24, row 24, is the same as C24, yeah it is 24, 24, then just do nothing. Let's return. Cool. All right, so that was an easy one. Let's put a bit of spacing in there. Make it look pretty. Okay, and then we've got else if this one. So if it's the next one down in the row, so if we've got, if we're on 30 and the next one down happens to be in row 31, then we want to make it part of the same range. So we're going to write that as row range dot end row is equal to row minus 1. So if the end row is a match with the current row minus 1, then we know it's part of the same range. So on that condition, all we want to do here is just add 1 to the row range end row. And row. Cool. And if we're on the very last cell of our all occurrence iteration, we just want to send the row range off to this append request function. So let's how we're going to do that. So we'll say if the index IDX, which is this one up here, if the index is equal to all occurrences dot length minus 1, then let's ship that off to append requests here. Cool. And inside the append requests, we're going to add in our row range. Lastly, so else, and this condition is going to be the catch-all for anything that is not directly below. So from this 31 through to 38, this will start again, so it'll catch it in this else statement. First thing we want to do is append the previous request. So we'll say append request, and that will do the previous range. So that will just push this one off here if we're starting on 38 now, and that'll send this off to append requests. So we need to put in row range here, and then we need to update the row range with our new range. So start row, that's going to be start row equal to row, and row range dot end row is equal to row. Cool. Oh, and I just noticed something at the top here when we're looking just before. What we actually have to do here is each property that we have, we need to assign, we add to our fields. So I got this a little bit wrong. So what do I need to do here? Here. So I'll type in this fields here, which should have been outside of the properties. And then this hidden by user is then going to get a Boolean value, which will be our isHide up here, like this. And hopefully I haven't made any more mistakes in this request. This is usually the bit where you make the mistakes because it's hard to implement. Okay, so we've finished that else statement. The last thing we need to do in the else statement is the same thing here with this if it's the last iteration in all occurrences. So where are we up here? Go down to 77, make a bit of space, just paste that value in there like that. And then we should be all good if we haven't made any mistakes. Let's just head back up. All rows looking good. Nice. Okay, let's give it a test. So we've got runsies here. We want to show, so we'll hit that true, or we could leave it blank, I guess. Let's save. And have a look on the left-hand side, and we'll hit run. Did we make a mistake? We did. Let line 59. That's a beautiful one. All right, fix that one up. Hit save. Any more like that? No, we did it. All right, let's just verify. Let's not get too cocky, Scott. All right, let's have a look down here. Yep, koalas were in that range. What was it, 8 to 13? Let's Control Z. It was, 8 to 13. And there was nothing else. There's no koalas sticking out there. Good. All right, let's try this range is 23 to 25. There's just one in there. Good-o. All right, there was 3 in that one. Excellent. Okay, I think we've nailed it. Let's just put in a false value to open everything up again. Hit save and run again. Just one more time. Bask in the glory of the functioning code. That's all open again. Yay. And we'll just do one final test because this last parameter is optional. So no argument there. And all sorted out. Awesome. Okay, so that concludes our find and hide rows based on a cell value in Google Sheets with Google Apps Scripts. Found this last version 3 to be surprisingly not quite as performant as version 2, but I can see the benefit of this one when you're adding in some other batch commands like adding formatting, you might be deleting some columns, you might be just manipulating the sheet a bit more, and you can just put it all together in one big batch command. Whereas with version 2, you just have to rely on the spreadsheet at flush and hope that it moves everything and updates it all together in one big hit. In the next tutorial, we'll move on and explore some more aspects of find and replace in Google Sheets using Google Apps Scripts. If you enjoyed this tutorial, please hit that like button. And if you want to see more tutorials like this, please subscribe and hit that notification bell. It really helps out with the algorithm. Okay, until next time.